There is a saying in the gaming community that I find very funny and fascinating at the same time. It goes, you can never truly quit a game, you just take long breaks from it. There are many examples of this phenomenon across the gaming landscape, but I think the best one to prove that this concept is real is Minecraft. I don't think I have a singular friend who has ever truly quit Minecraft, and I think that nobody actually does quit the game. No matter how many years will pass, you are not immune to that urge to load up Minecraft and start another survival world in whatever version you prefer, only to drop it and stop playing entirely after a few weeks, abandoning all those unfinished projects and leaving the ideas you had about great builds behind. It's called the 2-week Minecraft phase for a reason, after all. And I see this with a lot of other games too, not just Minecraft. I mean, let's be real, how many people have been telling you they are gonna quit League of Legends for real this time, only to be back grinding solo queue after a few weeks, if it even takes them a few weeks? And so, when someone says that they're done with a certain game, I usually go, yeah, sure, and always take it with a grain of salt. Not because I think that they are weak-willed or masochistic, but because I know how hard it is to quit something that you spend a large amount of time on. The sheer amount of investment that you put into certain games can be immense, especially if they are competitive in nature. There is a great video from Daryl Talks Games about this topic that goes a bit more in depth than I will here, but as it stands, there are a few reasons why people struggle to quit certain games. The most obvious one is the already mentioned investment, a sort of sunk cost fallacy. You have spent 100, 200, 500, 1,000, hell, 5,000 hours on a given game, and even though it is no longer fun for you, you simply cannot let it go. There are things in this game that you have achieved and that you're proud of. Be it your competitive rank, particularly rare and valuable items, or an in-game project you've been working on for a while now. You know that you've spent a lot of time, effort, and possibly money on this game, and stopping now would invalidate all of that progress you've made. And mind you, it's not just an issue in multiplayer games, no. Even single-player experiences can have this issue as well. Maybe you realize that you're just not really a fan of Baldur's Gate 3, but you're already 50 hours deep into your playthrough and the thought of abandoning it now feels horrible. Another reason that quitting games is so hard is far more complicated, and it is what I like to call the chase. The feeling you get when a game you love just does not give you the same amount of fun that it used to anymore. Maybe you're starting to notice certain flaws that you were blind to when you first started playing the game. Perhaps it is your skill improving so much that you can see the game crack and break down at the highest level due to a very stale or frustrating metagame. Or in the case of the live service, the game is getting worse with every patch, or maybe the issues that have been there since launch are still present and not being ironed out like they should be. Whatever the reason might be, it is what I believe to be the most common factor when people find themselves locked in these games. It's not because of animosity towards the game, its creators, or their fellow players, at least not really, even though some people say it like that, but instead, it's the realization that something you've loved for so long is slowly starting to lose its luster. And that realization hurts. Much like an old friend that you've been hanging out with for what seems like forever, but due to slow and subtle changes in your life and their life, you two start growing more and more distant from each other. But there are also a few other reasons that are a bit more serious and, dare I say, sad than the others. For example, the fact that some people don't quit a game because of the inside factors, but because of the outside social connections they have built within those games and that are scared to lose them. This phenomenon is probably the most common in MMORPGs, games that, for all intents and purposes, are chat rooms and social hangout spaces with a game attached. And I can very much empathize with that feeling. The people in your guild or raid group are real, and you have shared real and genuine experiences with them as a result. Maybe you know a few of them by their real names now. Maybe you've hung out together outside of the game or even met each other in real life. So once you realize that the game you all use as a sort of second home stops being fun for you, I can understand why that makes people feel uneasy. It's why some diehard fans of these games often go out of their way to vigorously defend it against any form of criticism. Because in their eyes, you're not critiquing their favorite game, but you're attacking their social space. Whatever the actual reason for sticking with a game for so long might be, letting go and quitting something you have spent so much time on is a real struggle. And for me at least, I too have had instances where I was very reluctant to quit a game that I just didn't enjoy anymore. The most extreme example of which is, Yeah, I'm not proud. It's League. It's fucking League of Legends. From around 2018 to 2021, I spent a long time playing League and amassed a shockingly high amount of hours too. I think the last time I checked, it was around 500 hours or so. Let me check actually real quick. How many hours did I spend on League? Oh my god. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. I did not holy Christ. And it wasn't really because of the game, not at all. I didn't want to improve, experience the deep gameplay, or was excited about a specific champion or the esports scene. It's simply because that was all my friend group did at the time. If I wanted to play games with them, it was either League or nothing at all. Seemingly their entire life was revolved around this game, and it was impossible to get them to play anything else. So I reluctantly joined as well, because if it's what I had to do in order to spend time with them, then so be it. This was not a very fun time of my life, and even though I had phases where I started to click with the game and even enjoyed it to an extent, I was still extremely unhappy overall. League is a game that brings out the very worst in people. The reasons as to why are so vast that I don't really have the time to get into it right now, and there are a multitude of other videos on YouTube trying to also explain this phenomenon. But if you have played League yourself, you will know how draining this game can be for your psyche. So much so that there are dozens of compilations of streamers having real, genuine breakdowns during certain sessions. It took me until late 2021 to quit the game, both because I decided that I simply did not want to subject myself anymore to that kind of mental stress, but also because I stopped relating to that particular group of friends. I still talk to some of them on occasion and I still love those guys deeply, but the others I simply did not identify with anymore. And while I am very happy I don't have to play League anymore, I cannot deny but feel a certain longing for a time like that again. These types of stories usually always have two sides. If you love a certain game and you keep playing it for years and years, but slowly the people who you used to play with break away, those doubts of, should I keep going anyways, start to creep in. That situation is also very real and can sting a lot too. You know you can't fault your friends for it at all. People get fed up with certain games and are gonna move on for a variety of different reasons. That's perfectly normal. But I still cannot deny that once that time comes and you realize that you're the only one left, it can get to you. This is something that happens more and more the older you and your friends get. Life changes, and so for whatever reason, your friends will not have the time, interest, or drive to play the game anymore. And you cannot really blame them for it either. Like, it's not a bad thing to do. It is still a video game at the end of the day. But video games mean something. The connections you form with them mean something. So those feelings of abandonment or disappointment are very much real. And much like my League story, I have experienced those same feelings many times in multiple different friend groups. Now, I've spent a decently long time talking about this phenomenon, and there really is no clear-cut answer for it. It's a very complex and multi-layered topic, and the decision to move on from a certain game is one that you have to make for yourself. But fuck all that deep and introspective shit, because I have been lying to you this whole time. You've been watching this video for the past 10 or so minutes at this point, and now you have been hit by the sunk cost fallacy of watch time. You can't back out of this one anymore. Oh no, you cannot. Because now it is time to drop the mask and reveal what the video is actually about. You have been trapped in the YouTube viewer retention cycle. You clicked on that funky thumbnail and on an interesting title, and you will now sit here and listen to me ramble about the game that has given me those exact same feelings, and you cannot stop it. A game that I wanted to quit for so long, but simply couldn't, no matter how many times I tried. A game that I eventually realized I never wanted to quit in the first place, but was trying to justify myself every single time when people would ask me about why I still play it. Because despite the reputation of both it and its developer, despite all the friends I used to play with quitting the game, I cannot help but love it to death anyways. This is no longer some kind of deep, introspective video about the nature of game addiction or the complex thought patterns that make it hard to quit something. No. As this is now a video about why For Honor fucking rules. So let me tell you why. Ubisoft is often regarded as the king of the 7 out of 10 video game, the mediocrity factory, the one publisher that after all these years still makes essentially the same game with minimal changes in a different setting. And for the most part, I absolutely agree. Ubisoft has been doing really shitty as of late, strictly following a stagnant formula that makes all their games feel the same, canceling projects that people want, while at the same time pushing other projects that no one has asked for, jumping on stupid bandwagons like NFTs and blockchain games, shutting down games out of nowhere like The Crew, although thankfully that is being addressed. Shout out Stop Killing Games. And mismanaging a ton of their games to the point of ruining any chance of them becoming massive commercial hits. The thing is though, Ubisoft used to not be this bad. Well, except for the mismanaging part, that one has kind of always been awful. But they were not this bad, trust me. During the 2010s, Ubisoft was still heralded as one of the most innovative and forward-thinking publishers of its era, with games like Assassin's Creed 4 and Far Cry 3 doing gangbusters, and those titles are still being praised as some of, if not the best entries in their respective franchises. Small recording update. I think Ubisoft started to realize that their new games are just kinda ass, so I guess we're getting Black Flag again, that's cool. And so, the 2010s moved on, and we saw the start of some brand new games that looked way too good to be true. Watch Dogs in 2013 was simply insane, showing a brand new level of detail and quality within the open world space, and the hacking mechanics that were shown off as well were just insanely impressive. Raising roadblocks to stop pursuers or executing large-scale blackouts with the simple touch of a button, it was incredible. This was, for many people, the future of open world. The Division followed later that same year and was just as impressive as Watch Dogs. One of the coolest and most interesting worlds that Ubisoft has ever made, with once again that quality and attention to detail that got so many people hyped and on board to get into this game and dig into its post-apocalyptic New York streets. And they had no intentions of slowing down either, because just a year later in 2014, Rainbow Six Siege was announced, shaping up to be one of the most ambitious multiplayer games of all time, with immersion, destruction, and vibes unlike anything that came before it, while still honoring the legacy of the Rainbow Six franchise that has laid dormant for a few years now. Ubisoft was undoubtedly on top of the world. Yeah, and then the games actually came out. Turns out that Ubisoft wasn't the best studio when it came to innovation or uniqueness. They were the best studio when it came to lying through their fucking teeth. All of these supposed pre-alpha gameplay videos are pure CGI trailers that have never had a single ounce of interactivity to them. It is shameless, blatant false advertising that was so egregious that Chromecast could make a whole ass career out of showing all the inaccuracies between the trailers and the final releases. And For Honor was unfortunately also a victim of this era of Ubisoft, although to a lesser extent. While the reveal trailer was at least being communicated as a render trailer, the first instance of pre-alpha gameplay was once again a complete lie. Everything from the engine, the animations, the interactivity, nearly every single aspect of this trailer was just completely wrong. They did eventually show gameplay later in 2015 that represented an actual early build of the game, but my point still stands. Ubisoft has repeatedly shown itself to be a lying, conniving company that has no qualms with blatant false advertisement, and I believe that this, at least in part, marked their steady decline in quality and reputation. But you gotta give credit where credit is due. While yeah, the reveals and launches of all of these games were absolute disasters, Ubisoft did end up sticking with all of them and put in a lot of work to make something out of it in the end. Well, except for maybe Watch Dogs, that game just kind of stayed mid forever, really. Rainbow Six Siege became one of the biggest multiplayer shooters of all time, and its wall destruction and reinforcement mechanics are still very unique and impressive even to this day. The Division received healthy post-launch support until the sequel in 2019, which after a really rocky road, became one of the best loot shooters on the market, finally eclipsing its main competitor Destiny 2 in player count just this year. And For Honor turned from a laggy, horribly unbalanced, peer-to-peer lag-switching nightmare into one of the most unique, interesting, and fun fighting games I have ever played. And yet, much like all the other games I talked about in the previous section, People describe it as this awful game that ruined their lives, fucked their moms, and made them a worse person overnight. While I do get that in some aspects, the gamer age truly does come for all of us. Frankly, a lot of that is greatly exaggerated and mostly comes from a place of nostalgia of how the game used to be, general burnout and fatigue, or just reminiscing about being an overall happier person back then. Now, don't get me wrong, the game has problems. I know, we will talk about them later, don't you worry. But you know, I also don't like making negativity-riddled videos on my channel, and this one is also not gonna be one of them either. I fucking love this video game, and I am tired of pretending that I don't. For Honor is a very special video game, not just for me personally, but also in the greater gaming space. It is a truly one-of-a-kind experience. No other game that has come since has ever tried to offer the same experience that For Honor does. Other medieval combat games like Chivalry or Mordhau are first person and arguably in a different genre and style of game entirely. And the only other one that features a similar combat system is Absolver, which was being made at almost the exact same time as For Honor and therefore not directly inspired by it. So why, after all this time, has there been no other game like it since? I think the biggest reason for that is twofold, that being the setting and the combat. Outside of the RTS genre, the concept of different historical nations locked in constant war is very underused, and so when For Honor turned it into a fighting game, people were obviously very excited. No matter what fantasy or interest you have regarding medieval warfare, For Honor is almost guaranteed to have at least one character that fulfills that. Templar-adoring Hema-larper who thinks about the Roman Empire all the time? The Knights, deep-voiced Scandinavian cosplay alcoholics with a deep and very platonic love for burly men. That's the Vikings. Overly edgy anime-addicted body pillow owners who have been studying the blade instead of talking to women. The samurai are right there. Stoicism-maxing wannabe intellectuals who have been in a very Chinese time of their life lately. The Wulin.
What's up, dog?
And lastly, the Outlanders, that offer a character for almost every other historic warfare hyperfixation underneath the sun. For Honor's character roster is the strongest it has ever been, with so many different and unique options that are, for the most part, extremely fun to play. Nearly every type of weapon, armor class, and fighting style is represented here, all of them coming with high quality animations and a beautiful visual style that honors and celebrates their respective cultures. And speaking of the visuals and style, I simply have to highlight the incredibly strong progression system here that is basically perfect in my opinion. Every 20 levels you will basically prestige and gain a level of reputation with a given character, which allows for rarer and rarer gear to drop at the end of matches. So after enough playtime, you will be able to turn your stinky, ugly, basic bitch character into a godlike fashion icon that exudes insane aura just by walking towards your opponent. Not only is it very fun to match different armors, palettes, material colors, and effects, but it also acts as a great representation of the time you've dedicated to a certain character. Encountering that player with a ridiculously high rep on a given character and seeing how they have fashioned out their main is extremely cool and gives you a real desire to grind so you could also become like them one day. Ubisoft have made an ecosystem where I actively want to unlock, level up, and fashion out new characters on the regular, which in turn naturally diversifies my playstyle and forces me to go outside of the box if I want the cool looking armor. While yes, the unlock costs for everything are pretty steep, the steady flow of currency that you get for consistent play is usually more than enough for you so that you will get something new every couple of days. I would much rather have a system that rewards you for small sessions every single day rather than having to grind for hours upon hours at a time to feel miserable afterwards. Playing the game in short 30-minute bursts is usually more than enough to finish your dailies, and if you want to complete the additional orders, you will have to only play for like an hour or maybe two if you get unlucky more after that. It's a very nice, time-rewarding system that I really enjoy personally. That consistent loop of getting characters, earning gear and steel, and then buying more characters and fashioning them out is such a fascinating loop to me, and the dopamine receptors up in my brain start bursting with excitement whenever I get enough steel to buy a new character, only to spend it all on executions and outfits for my mains anyways. With this combination of the game's setting, its unique and vast character roster, the steady drip feed of progression, and an absolutely phenomenal endgame fashion incentive, you can get hooked by For Honor very quickly, and once the hooks are in, it is very, very hard to leave. But I think what truly made me fall in love with this game, and the real reason why I want to recommend it to you, is the gameplay. For Honor's combat system is one of the most addicting, well-designed, and dopamine spike-inducing systems I have ever experienced. Fighting other people in this game is second to none, I swear to God. It feels so cool. Blades clashing constantly, dodging and parrying incoming attacks only to counter with your own, trying to bait each other constantly to throwing a wrong move so you can react and punish them, the consistent mind games between you and your opponent, dancing around each other all the time, and then that satisfying crescendo after you get the upper hand and finish them off with one of the many incredibly well animated and awesome executions. For Honor's combat system aims to replicate the feeling of real-life medieval weaponry very closely, and therefore, the system is a lot more like a third-person action game than a normal fighting game. Think more Dark Souls, less Street Fighter. During combat, you don't just control your character with the left stick, but also your weapon stance with the right stick. Depending on the direction the weapon is held, you will both perform and automatically block attacks in that direction. Alternatively, you can also dodge attacks or parry them with good enough timing in order to capitalize on your opponent's recovery frames. This is much more akin to a normal fighting game like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, etc. Offensively speaking, there are 3 main ways to attack your opponent. Fast and low damage light attacks that you have to commit to, slow and high damage heavy attacks that are feintable as a way to bait your opponent, and an undamaging but unblockable guard break attack that is essentially like a grab move. But instead of being a get off of me tool like it is in normal fighting games, guard breaking an opponent is designed to catch them off guard during their defense. For example, when you get guard broken from neutral, you can simply shake off the opponent and continue on as normal. But if you get guard broken during a dodge, the startup animation of an attack, or during certain special stances or moves like full blocks for example, you can't shake them off anymore, forcing you to take guaranteed damage as a punishment for being caught. Lastly, every offensive action you perform, be it attacking, feinting, guard breaking, etc., also costs stamina, which puts a cap on how many moves can be performed in quick succession. However, most defensive actions like blocking, parrying, or dodging do not cost stamina, and therefore you're not being punished for being defensive, and you're actively being limited on your offense when you're offensive. This limits potential spam and forces overly aggressive players to back off on occasion and kind of find their footing again. Because when you run out of stamina, you become extremely slow and very susceptible to parries and other high damage punishes. These are just the basics of the combat system, but there is so much more depth beneath the surface that adds an incredible amount of skill expression to each character, and once the system fully clicks in your brain, my god, the feeling you get when outplaying someone is unmatched. Nope. The certified nope. Nope. I'm in his head. I'm in his head. I'm so in his head. It's over. I'm in his head. Sheesh. God damn. I fucking love this system so much, and it is the main reason why I ended up playing over 3,500 matches in duels alone. If you're not aware, For Honor has 2 main game modes that are actively being played, those being 4v4s and 1v1s. 4v4s, specifically the Dominion and Breach game modes, are the most popular and act as the game's bread and butter. A more chaotic and free-flowing game mode, where it's less about individual performance or skillful fighting, and more about team play, coordination, and ganking. Lots and lots of ganking. While it is the more approachable and casual game mode, it is also where the game's balancing issues start to arise the most, in my opinion. It is nowhere near as bad as it used to be. God, no, it's not. But certain characters are just a nightmare to deal with in a more uncontrolled 4v4 setting. Parrying becomes harder, cheese strats are easier to perform, and fights can become very messy to the point where a lot of players simply will have no idea what's going on anymore. I mean, like, look at this 4 versus 4 player fight. Can you see any rhyme or reason as to what the fuck is going on right now? Now, is it fun with friends and if you don't take it too seriously? Oh, absolutely it is. But the longer you play, and especially in solo queue, the more frustrating and annoying it becomes, especially for players who are new to the game, because the game's onboarding is completely horrendous. The tutorials are very outdated and do not tell you everything you need to know. The PvE offerings are very, very untouched and have not been updated in years. And the story is fun if you want to just like be very casual about it, but it is not an accurate representation of what the actual multiplayer game is gonna be like. And that is exactly what happened to me. And so very early on in my time with For Honor, I decided to swap to the duels game mode. Duels are a mostly fair experience mono-e-mono, with the only reason why you lost simply being that the other person was just better than you are. But as is true for any fighting game, this is also where the game becomes a lot more competitive. And as a result, that same depth that I praised earlier is also where most players are beginning to struggle. Because once you get into the weeds of For Honor's combat, you will find that there are so many different factors that you have to consider when playing this game. Undodgeables, unblockables, zone attacks, dodge attacks, bashes, command grabs, deflecting, special moves and stances unique to each hero, superior block, soft feinting, wall splats, hyper armor, out of stamina punishes, variable attack timing, heavy startup time, option selecting, guard break vulnerability. There is so much complexity hidden underneath the hood of this game that it makes it a double-edged sword in a way. On one hand, it is one of the most fun, skillful, and rewarding experiences I have ever seen, but on the other hand, learning it can be a very slow, difficult, and time-intensive process that a lot of players are simply not willing to engage with. You will eat a lot of shit during that learning phase, and it can be demoralizing and frustrating, I know. In fact, a lot of negative reviews come from people who have bounced off of the game due to this very issue. Add to that the ever-present fighting game problem of new characters releasing either extremely underpowered or so OP that they start dominating the game, and I think you can start to see why For Honor still gets a lot of criticism to this day. But in spite of it all, I still cannot help but wholeheartedly recommend this, both to new and returning players. If you truly want to learn this game, get better at it, and go into this with a dedicated mindset, you will find an experience that is unlike anything else in gaming. I am saying this once again with my whole chest. This game is unlike anything I have ever played and will likely continue to be unlike anything that gets released in the foreseeable future. Especially because right now, For Honor is in one of the best states it has ever been in. And to illustrate that, let me show you a glimpse of what the game used to be like and how the developers have ultimately turned it around in the end. This one is more for the returning players rather than the newcomers, but fuck it, I just want to ramble about it for a bit, so here we go! The way stamina works has been completely overhauled from the ground up. Stamina costs have been reduced across the board, and stamina drain has been basically completely removed from the game entirely. Getting hit by bashes, grab attacks, or getting parried no longer costs stamina, as well as all the defensive options as well that I previously mentioned. This makes fighting overall a lot more proactive, as players have more stamina to use for their own offense and won't get gimped by bash spam or playing defensively anymore. Additionally, you will now recover all of your stamina immediately after getting hit by an out of stamina punish, which is sort of a second wind mechanic. This reduces the severity of getting out of stamina punished and eliminates annoying situations like knockdown chains or other spam like that. A ton of new customization options have been added to the game that allow for brand new fashion opportunities and making characters truly your own. These include over 20 new material colors, many sets of beautiful weapons and armor sets for each hero, a large amount of both universal and unique executions that range from badass to stylish. To complete memes. Dedicated hero skins that fundamentally change the character's look, armor, and sometimes even gender, while still allowing for material and color customizations to be present to make them your own still. And finally, an uncountable amount of palettes, embossings, effects, and so many other smaller things that I'm just not gonna list here because it is simply too much to cover. Attack timings have been cleaned up across the board, standardizing light attack openers to 500 milliseconds in order to create a more consistent experience for the entire cast. A frame advantage system akin to a normal fighter was also implemented as well, giving the defending player a frame advantage so that light attack combos or guard break spam can be interrupted and broken out of more easily. This system not only made the game a lot more balanced, but also fundamentally broke the long-standing meta of overly defensive turtling and reactionary counters. And instead, the game is now more focused on skillful reads, predictions and outplays, like it should be. In addition to those attack timing changes, damage values were lowered across the board, so players became more durable and fights wouldn't end in 4 or 5 hits only. This to me is by far the greatest thing to ever happen to this game and is the bedrock on which the current experience of fighting other people stands. This reduction in combination with the other changes has resulted in a almost 37% reduction in damage across the board and has made fights so much more fun and skill intensive. Warden's top heavy, 45 damage in the olden days, 32 now. Raiders heavy finishers, 40 down to 24. Conqueror's full block stance counter, 30 guaranteed damage down to just 12. Shaman side heavies, 40 damage down to 28. Jormungandr's hammer slam from an eye-watering 50 damage to just 26. There are so many more changes that it would simply take too long to talk about all of them in this video. So if you care about this and want to see how every hero was affected, I made a whole damage comparison sheet for you to check out. It's not a comprehensive list by any means and just acts as a sort of little experiment to gather data, but if you're curious, I linked it down in the description below so you can check that out if you want. Around 75% of the cast has gotten reworks and rebalances in an attempt to make the entire roster effective and fun to play in a 1v1 scenario. Nearly every single character now has an unblockable neutral attack in order to open up turtling opponents, and a greater focus on mix-ups for more varied gameplay. I present to you a few examples. Shogoki turned from a slow and lumbering idiot into a genuine tank with variable timings on his heavies, chainable headbutt attacks, and a redesigned hug that now acts as a sustain tool for increased durability in fights. Shinobi went from arguably the worst character in the whole game with a stupid range mechanic to a very scary and capable rushdown hero, with a large focus on mix-ups and tricks to keep the opponents on their toes. Centurion's stupid cutscene attack was removed and replaced with variable timings on his punches, which turned him from a boring one-trick pony into an extremely aggressive wall that applies near constant pressure to the opponent. Such is the will of the Roman Empire. Aramusha left his soft feint spamming old self behind and now is turned into a flexible, stylish as hell brawler that excels at jukes and opening up turtling opponents, something he was notoriously bad at previously. After his failed rework, Lawbringer has probably received more buffs than any other hero on the entire roster until he became so strong and so versatile that he had to be nerfed in the most recent patch just because he was that dominant. And by God, do I love that that's a thing. Raider's war crime causing stunning tap has been removed and replaced with a slower, non-stunning version, which overall has made the world a much better place. Jormungandr has been completely overhauled, and instead of being an annoying stamina drain and grab spamming hero, he became one entirely focused on displacement and wall splats for big bonkin' damage. There are around a dozen more characters that have either been reworked or adjusted in some way to be stronger and a lot better to play, and it honestly has worked beautifully. With the exception of maybe 1 or 2 heroes, the developers have tried to ensure that every single one of them is a joy to play and feels like you can be successful with them if you get good enough. And that really is the secret sauce that has made me fall in love with this game. Despite what the Reddit forums, comment sections, and angry Steam reviews full of salty crybabies may say, the devs love this game and love the community. Otherwise, there wouldn't be frequent Warriors Den streams where they openly chat with their players about the state of the game. They wouldn't continue to invite pro players to their offices to gather hands-on feedback from people who know this game inside and out. They wouldn't be so transparent about the game's future, and the testing server wouldn't have been receiving constant updates and changes that are then iterated on with the player base. And they absolutely wouldn't put long-standing memes and insiders into the game as a love letter to the people who played their game for so long. Like the glowing red eyes effect for executions, the bright pink color you can only get by reaching reputation 80, and other dumb shit like the horse rider execution for Lawbringer. For Honor is a very silly game, and I love it. These people care about their game more than anyone else, and that dedication has formed a very loyal and tight-knit community of people who want to see where the journey will go next. Yes, the game has issues, and will inevitably continue to have issues in the future too. But honestly, Which live service game doesn't have issues at this point? Be it aggressive cheating, slow and unreliable content updates, long-standing bugs and glitches, or completely broken characters or weapons that ruin the game for a few weeks. That's simply how these games go, and especially in a field that is as uncharted and weird as a third-person fighting game based on medieval warfare, I still very much believe that the men, women, and people in between that are part of the For Honor development team are doing a pretty damn good job. For a long time, I have said that I can probably never quit For Honor. The reasons as to why were always changing based on a variety of factors. The reputation of the game and its developer has always made me try and justify myself as to why I, quote, still subject myself to such a terrible video game, or whatever the fuck like you keep saying nowadays when you play these sorts of games. But now I can say with confidence that I was lying to myself. I kept playing For Honor not because of sunk cost fallacy, addiction, or some sort of video game Stockholm syndrome. I kept playing it because I really, really love it on a deep level. It's truly a one-of-a-kind experience that no matter how many weeks, months, or even years may go by, I will still come back to it eventually. For Honor fucking rules. And I hope that both it and its community will live a long and healthy life for the foreseeable future. Thank you so much for watching my video. This recording has been very annoying and I had to start over twice because I was just not capable of saying certain words and phrases, but what can I say? That's just the price I pay for being non-English native. If you like what you saw here and you're interested in my continued existence on this platform, memberships, Patreon, social media accounts, all that shit in the description below, you know what to do. I know that talking about games like this always brings like the ire and contempt of those players to these videos, but I don't care. I love this game and I'm tired of pretending that I don't love it. And to all my fellow tin cans, weebs, neckbeards, intellectuals, and everyone else, I hope to see you one day on the battlefield 1v1ing my beautiful Rep 21 Glad, because simply, he deserves to be shown off. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I love you all. Ciao, ciao.